Ladies and gentlemen, Curb Your Enthusiasm Season 12, Episode 2 was wild. Seriously, this was just an all-around classic good episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I know it's only Episode 2 of the final season of the show, but there's a lot to like here. There's a couple flaws in it as well, which we're going to get into in this video. And just overall, I still think this is going out pretty strong. This episode, I feel like, was just a very unique episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where there was just like a lot going on. And I remember Jeff Garlin in one of the Curb Your Enthusiasm podcasts a couple weeks ago saying that he doesn't like that these later seasons of Curb are more involved as far as the plot goes. I genuinely think this episode suffered from that. But even though it suffered from that a little bit, it still had so many funny moments that it was just, it didn't really matter. So the overall premise of this episode is pretty simple. It follows up exactly where the last episode ended. So we see Larry in prison and he meets some guy in prison. And then when he comes out, it turns out that the lawyer that's representing Larry looks exactly like Mocha Joe, because it's the same guy, clearly. It's the same actor who played Mocha Joe, which was, to me, I think one of the funniest things ever. It was so hilarious because I genuinely have always found Mocha Joe to be such an amazing addition to Curb Your Enthusiasm, whether it was his actual season against Latte Larry or whether it was just any scene he was in. I've always really loved the character. I've thought he was really funny over the years. So to see him in this capacity where it's not him and Larry is so peeved by it, it's so funny. So anyway, Larry gets picked up essentially by Mocha Joe, the lawyer, and even though it's not Mocha Joe, but whatever. He gets picked up by him and he goes outside to realize he's a hero among the community for doing what he did to Auntie Ray in the last episode. And who's there? None other than Jeff Green to like save it. And at the end of that whole sequence of events, turns out that Jeff already ordered an Airbnb. Him and Susie are there and all that stuff. So, of course, Jeff and Larry go home. And when they go home, they go outside and there is this lawn jockey outside of the Airbnb. And it just so happens to be a black lawn jockey. They're peeved about it. They go inside. Leon comes in. He's peeved about it. It was a whole thing. So they decide to try to move it, but break it. So that's when Susie, who is one of the best characters in the show, Susie comes out and is like, "Oh, fuck you guys," and like freaks out, makes a whole scene. So they have to go find a new lawn jockey. So that's like one of the biggest plots of this episode. But there's also the subplot of Susie's birthday gift, and then there's the other subplot of Mocha Joe with Latte Larry, and then there's the other subplot of Auntie Ray and that whole dilemma where Larry becomes a celebrity and he's on like CNN and all that stuff, or all those channels, whatever it is. So like, that's kind of where I run into trouble with this episode. This is one of the first episodes of Curb where I didn't feel like it was Curb, if that makes any sense. Hear me out a little bit. I feel like this episode was more like a sitcom, and not that that's a problem at all, but most episodes of Curb are pretty simple. There's one problem, and then things happen along the way to cause it more ruckus and stuff like that. Like, that's the general run-of-the-mill Curb episode. But this one, and I agree with what Jeff Garlin's saying, because this felt like it was very complex. There was a lot of storylines going on for an episode of Curb. Not that there's a lot for like other shows, blah, 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 but there was like a lot of moving parts in this episode. Again, I don't really think that's a problem necessarily. It's just, I guess, one of the only flaws of this episode. It didn't really feel like a Curb episode. It felt more like a sitcom. So I didn't love that, but I love everything that came out of it. The lawn jockey stuff, specifically when Larry goes to the store to buy a lawn jockey and there's only white lawn jockeys and he has to tell the guy that he wants the black one. It's a whole thing. I just like, it's so funny. And in my head, to me, the whole time, I'm like, why don't you just tell him it's an Airbnb? Like, it's not your, I don't know. Like, the whole problem could have been avoided if you had just said it was an Airbnb, whatever. But it made for some hilarious humor. Of course, they couldn't find a black lawn jockey anywhere, so the only solution that they came to was to use Jeff's hair dye that he used to like dye his hair and paint the face of the white lawn jockey black. It ended in like the best way, where at the end of the episode, because Georgia Heat, it's crazy over there, they are outside having an argument with Susie over a birthday gift thing that happened earlier in the episode. And of course, Jeff's hair dye starts to melt in the outside in the front lawn. And so does the dye from the jockey's painted face that they did. And of course, anytime Susie is on screen freaking out at Jeff and Larry, it's one of the best elements to Curb Your Enthusiasm, and it really shined here. It was just so funny. The whole amalgamation of everything. And that's where I will counter my point a little bit, where I said I didn't really like the idea that there were so many moving parts, but I did like how in this episode they all came together in a really funny way. And this episode only furthers my idea that I think they might kill Larry this season. If they're not going to kill him, they're going to like put him in jail or something like that. He has to like repent for all the bad deeds he's done. Not that he's like evil or anything like that, but I feel like the ultimate joke in this show would be for him to get something outlandish that he didn't exactly deserve, but did deserve, you know what I mean? And I feel like him getting like killed or something, I know that's like morbid, but it would just make it would be a hilarious ending. I really do think it would fit the humor of the show very well. Will it happen? I don't know, but I genuinely think it would be funny. Like, could you imagine if Mocha Joe, like the lawyer guy, comes back and he's like, actually, I'm Mocha Joe. And like, I don't know. I'm just making shit up, but I think that would be funny. That is not Curb humor. They probably will not do that, but I don't know. I think it's funny. But there's some other really funny jokes that I liked in this episode, like the Rudy Giuliani thing, the whole thing where Larry's in the store and he has to poop in the store. So the guy makes him buy a $650 jacket, and he gives the jacket to the guy he met in prison. And the guy he met in prison gets arrested for wearing the jacket. Like, I love those little developments. And then the funniest scene in this episode was when Mocha Joe not Mocha Joe, the lawyer Joe, I guess, I don't know his name, but he's talking about coffee at the table right before Larry fires him. And he's just like, coffee, 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 coffee. I don't know why. I just think it's something with the actor for Mocha Joe. I think it's something with his face and the way he delivers his lines with like always a little bit of light aggression. It's just the funniest thing. Whoever his actor is just such an amazing job with improv. It's so funny. It's so good. It makes for comedic gold. I don't want that to be the last time we see Lawyer Joe or whatever we call him, even though I kind of have a feeling it might. But this season is doing something that these last few seasons of Curb have done, where they stick to a plot more strongly. Like some of the older seasons of Curb didn't. It was just Larry going through the motions of life. These seasons have felt more like an epic. You know what I mean? Like, not like a Curb epic, not like a real epic, but they felt more triumphant. Like, it felt like there was an overarching story, especially like with the Maria Sofia Estrada thing of last season, and then this season with the whole him getting arrested for the water bottle thing. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with it, but I also like just classic Curb episodes where it's just a day in LA with like the celebrities. I think that's pure comedic gold, where it's like a celebrity being recognized, blah, blah, blah. And there is those elements in this episode. It's just not exactly the same. This felt more sitcom-y. So I guess that's my take. I loved it. I thought this was one of the funnier episodes of Curb in a while. I genuinely did. There was a lot of really funny scenes in it, but I don't know if I liked the overall formula of this episode. And, excuse me, at that, I really wish and I hope that we're going to get some more stuff back in LA later in the show. And that's where I'm going to end this video. I loved these first two episodes. I think it's starting out really strong. I can't wait to see where it goes, and I can't wait to see how they conclude a comedy show like this. I really do. I think it'll be a really funny thing to see. But my only hope, and I know they will, but my only hope is that they eventually go back to LA, because there's a lot of people I'd love to see. I'd love to see Richard Lewis. I'd love to see more of Vince Vaughn this season, Funkhouse or whatever his actual name is in the show. I'd love to see Cheryl more in this season and have all of those characters come together where they belong, like truly where they belong. And I don't know if you guys noticed, I just spit all over my mouth, but I'm keeping that in because I'm not cutting. I don't feel like editing. Whatever. All that being said, this was a hilarious episode of Curb. I like the direction, but I kind of don't like the direction, so I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't know. What do you think? Leave your comments down there. Let me know what you thought about this episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.